Hello, let's start the construction of the Phanvic. Along this video I will make some mistakes. I hope you spot the mistakes and don't make the same mistakes as I did. So let's start with the cables, with these wires. There are two types of wires, the thinner wires and the thicker wires. And in this bag we have all the screws needed, and this tubing, the glue and all that stuff. At first this was a little bit confusing, what to do with all these things, and then I get this box with some divisions on it, and I could first I separate the things, but I was a little bit confused at first, of course. Then I separate the screws by each type and size. So I was lucky because this box have 6 divisions and there are 6 types of screws, so I could put the 6 types of screws separately. Now the first thing to do is to solder the thinner wires to these boards, these little boards with LEDs. I am not good at soldering stuff at all. So the first thing is to put a little bit of solder on these contacts, on each one. On 3 contacts, 3 contacts, 3 contacts, 3 contacts, 3 contacts. Just a little bit of solder, and make sure they don't make contact with each other. I am not a good solder at all. Okay, almost done. There's 2 left to go to solder, or 3. A ball here. 2 left, 1 left, and it's done. Now let's check the wires. They're all put together. We must separate the wires. There are 3 colors of wires, yellow, red and black, as you can see here, and we must separate the thicker wires and the thinner wires. The thinner wires are for the LEDs and the thicker wires are for the motors. The motors have more power. Here they are, the separated wires, the thicker and the thinner wires. And now we strip the point of the wires. I'm not good at stripping the wires too. Now we are going to solder the tip of the wire on this board. Be careful where you solder the wires, because there is a way to do it. As you can see, the red is V plus G, the black is on the middle, and the yellow is on the R. You repeat the process on all the boards, the little boards, and you came up with something like that. Now the motors. I choose to buy a new motors because they are not so expensive. I bought them from eBay, and these ones came from China directly. Now let's strip the wires, the thicker ones, to solder the tip of this wire to each tip of each wire on the motors. I put a little bit of solder in each tip of the wires to make sure they are going to solder well. Basically, we are doing an extension of the wires on the motors. Then you end up with 4 motors with all the wires soldered, extension of the wires. And now make sure all the wires are well soldered. And now we use a retractable sleeve to cover the soldering on each wire. We cut the little pieces like this one I have on my fingers, and we put here to cover the wire, expose the soldered wire to not make contact with each other. Now with a lighter or something we hit the retractable sleeve, and the sleeve shrink, and it will not come out of there. Now the same process for all the wires. Careful not to burn the wire and the retractable sleeve. Careful, do that. Now it's time to separate the legs or the horns or whatever the name of these things. There are four motors, of course, and 4 legs, and each leg have a cover, the top and bottom pieces, and then now we separate them, all of them. Now let's assemble the first arm with the top and cover. Okay, now we are going to put first the motor. Careful in this part because there are clockwise motors and anti-clockwise motors, or each one have a black on top, a black spot, and the others have no black spot on top. I have done a mistake. I put the front motors in the wrong position. The black motor should be on the front right, and I put the black motor on the front left. I have to disassemble all and reassemble it with in the right position. Now I am assembling the motors with the original motor screws that came in the Phantom. You can use just a Phantom and transform into a Phanvic, or get all the pieces of the Phantom and put on the Phanvic shell, but in that way is more expensive. Okay, the motor is screwed on the arm. Now we put this transparent plastic here, and then we put the LED on the arm. The LEDs we have soldered before. We cut this like that and put here with a little bit of glue, hot glue, and careful putting this not to break anything. I mean, the wire is very thin. Then we curl the wires of the motors, and now we put this sleeve. We pass all the wires through this sleeve. For those who have a Mavic, can spot a sleeve like that on the Mavic arms. Now it's time to rehearse the cover, if it fits well, like this. And now we are going the other arm, the other front arm. As I said before, we put a little bit of hot glue here, so the LED won't come out of there or shake inside the arm during the flight. Now it comes the tricky part of putting the antenna inside the arm. Check this. We have to put the sleeve like that to pass the wire of the antenna only through this part of the sleeve, like this. Now we're gonna see how it's done. Remember, all the antennas have numbers from 1 to 4 because there are 4 antennas. Make sure all the antennas are in the right position for each one. The antenna number 1 is for the front right arm. The antenna number 2 is for the front left arm. The antenna number 3 is for the rear left arm, and the antenna number 4 is for the rear right arm. Okay, now the wire is done, the antenna wires. You put the antenna like that on the sleeve. Now we rehearsal all the wires inside the arm, positioning the antenna in maybe a 40 degrees position, and then we rehearsal the cover if everything fits well, like this. Now it's time to close the arm. We use the number 3 screw on the back of the motor and the number 4 on the rest of the arm. And this arm is ready to be mounted on the shell of the Phanvic. Now we are starting to assemble the rear foot. We put a screw on this black feet, and then all the same procedure as we done with the front arms. Now we can screw the GPS on the top cover of the shell of the Phanvic. It's easy to put the GPS here because there's only one position that can be screwed, like this, with the wire, black wires for the back of the cover. Now this is the lower shell. There are a GPS module to put inside this box, but I don't have that GPS module, so I'm going to screw the feet on this place with little screws like that. Now it's time to mount the arms. We passed the wires through this hole on the shell, on the lower shell, like this. Now we are putting the spindles on the arms. This is going to be a little bit difficult. We need to rotate the spindle and at the same time with a screwdriver or something press down to lock into position like this. Now we are going to use the screw number 1 here, and be careful, do not overscrew the screw, or then it will break the screw and damage the plastic of the shell. Don't over tighten the screws or they will break. Okay, the first arm is done and is working. All the arms are done with exception of the rear right arm. I have left the rear right arm so you can see how it's done. Okay, all the 4 arms are done and working well. Now I'm organizing the wires, passing the wires in the right positions, the antennas and all that. This black cable is going to be like that, passing through this hole, and as you can see the antenna wires are all over on the left and right of these holes. Now I'm going to mount the vision position module. It's a little bit tricky to put the right antennas on the right sockets. You have to pay attention to connect on the right spots, on the right plugs, Each step we do on this construction should be done very careful, one by one, so at the end all will be well constructed and functioning well. Now I'm going to put the little USB, this one, screwed here on the shell with the little screws that came with it on the Phantom. As we can see, this shell is not printed. It's not 3D printed. It's done in the molds. It's an injected plastic or something. The guy asked me if this was 3D printed, and of course it's not. And now I'm rehearsal the position of the main board of the Phantom here. Now I'm going to put the board screwed here on the shell with the 4 screws that came with the board in the Phantom. Here I forget to put the back of the shell here first. Now we are mounting the compass. Careful on the position of the compass. The compass should be pointing front like this, and there is no screw on to fix this. We put just hot glue on it to fix it like this. This was the part I was talking about. I forget to put before the board, and then I have difficulties to screw this here because there are 1 screw at one side and 2 screws at the other side, and the second screw is behind the board. Then I have to take out the board again and to screw this together. And as you can see, I have already soldered the wires of the motors and the LEDs to the board. I didn't show here on this video because I don't know how to solder well, and you can do it better than me. I left, as you can see here, too much wire. I could cut off the extra wire on the motors, but I left there because if something goes wrong and I have to cut the wire, then I have big wires to waste if there is need for that. Now we use the screw number 1 on these holes. Now I am putting this box, this little plastic with the compass facing forward. That is important. Okay, and there are a GPS tracker available to put inside this little box, this little space near the compass, but I don't have it. Okay, let's mount the base of the gimbal. Here I was just testing if it fits well with the screws number 6, and then I unscrew that and put the rubber balls on it. Now I'm closing the Phanvic with the upper shell partially, just going to test the GPS, the motors and the LEDs, if everything works, not to fly yet. And without the gimbal, because the gimbal was damaged, and at this point I don't have a gimbal working well. We use screws number 5 to screw the upper shell to the lower shell.